The city had always been neutral ground. That was why he chose it. Julian arrived just after midnight, his black sedan slipping through the gated entrance of the private hotel like a blade through silk. The building didn't advertise itself. No sign, no lights beyond a single strip along the roof. This was a place built for men who needed to disappear while deciding the fate of others. He stepped out into the cold, coat collar turned up, the storm already beginning to show its teeth. Snow fell sideways, sharp and fast, clinging to the shoulders of his men as they moved with practiced precision around him. The wind howled between the concrete towers like an animal trapped and furious. Neutral city, neutral hotel, neutral ground for a territory alliance that could either end a decade of bloodshed or ignite something far worse. Julian didn't believe in coincidence, he believed in control. Inside, the lobby was empty except for a single desk clerk and the low hum of generators. Armed security stood discreetly at every corner, hands near concealed weapons. The air smelled of polished stone and ozone. "We're on lockdown," the clerk said, voice tight. "Airport is closed, roads are shut down, cities declared a weather emergency." Julian didn't slow. "I have a reservation." The clerk nodded quickly. "Of course, we've prepared the secure suites." Suites, plural, good. Then the man hesitated. Julian stopped. That hesitation was a mistake. People learned quickly not to hesitate around him. "There's a complication," the clerk said, swallowing. "Due to the storm and additional arrivals, we're down to one secure suite." Julian's gaze sharpened, the room seemed to shrink around it. "Explain." "The other suites were reassigned under emergency protocol," the clerk rushed. "The remaining suite meets all security requirements, but it's already occupied." Julian's jaw tightened. "By who?" The clerk checked his screen, then looked up with visible discomfort. "By your assigned crisis strategist." That name landed heavier than the storm outside. Elena. Of course it was her. Julian felt irritation coil low in his chest, hot and immediate. Elena Starling, the woman who questioned his decisions in council briefings. The woman who spoke to him like he was a man, not a king. The woman who never lowered her eyes. The woman he had not requested. "She shouldn't be here," Julian said flatly. "She was deployed under contingency orders," the clerk replied. "Her presence was authorized at the highest level." Julian knew exactly whose level that was, and he didn't like surprises. "Security lockdown means no one leaves the building," the clerk added. "If the suite isn't shared, protocol requires relocation 40 miles out. Roads aren't safe." Julian didn't need to ask which option was safer, or which one was being forced on him. He moved toward the elevator without another word. The ride-up was silent. His reflection stared back at him from the mirrored walls. Calm, controlled, unreadable. The storm outside raged harder with every floor they climbed, as if nature itself was challenging him. The suite door opened to warmth, soft lighting, and the unmistakable presence of someone who did not belong to his world, yet refused to bend to it. Elena stood near the window, arms crossed, dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp as she turned. "So," she said, "I was wondering how long it would take." Julian closed the door behind him with deliberate calm. "This is unacceptable." "Take it up with the storm," she replied, "or whoever decided your empire doesn't outrank weather." His men paused. He lifted a hand. They withdrew without question. The room felt smaller with just the two of them. "There are 2 bedrooms," Elena continued, gesturing casually. "Separate, locked. I already checked the security specs. They're solid." She had checked, of course she had. You weren't supposed to be assigned to me, Julian said. And yet here I am, she replied. Funny how that works. His eyes swept over her, taking in details he didn't allow himself to notice. The steadiness of her posture, the calm in her voice, no fear, no hesitation. You challenge authority too easily, he said. You mistake fear for respect, she answered without missing a beat. I don't fear you, that doesn't mean I don't understand what you are. The words should have angered him. Instead, something else stirred, something unwelcome. Ground rules, Julian said coldly. We don't interfere with each other. We don't discuss alliance details. We don't pretend this is anything other than necessity. Alina tilted her head, studying him, and you don't intimidate me into silence. He stepped closer, the air between them tightened. You think this is intimidation, he said quietly. You haven't seen me intimidate. She held his gaze, didn't blink, didn't retreat. Then don't, she said, because I was assigned to keep this alliance from collapsing, and right now you're the biggest risk in the room. For a long moment the storm was the only sound. Wind slammed against the windows, snow clawed at the glass. Julian finally turned away. 2 nights, he said, then this ends. Alina watched him go, her reflection faint in the darkened window. Neither of them said what both were already beginning to feel. That this storm hadn't trapped predator and prey. It had trapped 2 forces that had been circling each other for far too long. And someone, somewhere, had planned it that way. The storm did not ease through the night. It grew heavier, louder, more aggressive, as if the city itself was testing how much pressure the walls could hold. Snow slammed against the windows in thick waves, and the wind screamed through the narrow gaps between buildings. Julian stood near the far end of the suite, his jacket still on his presence, filling the space without effort. Control was the only language he trusted, and tonight even the weather was refusing to obey. Alina moved through the suite with calm, deliberate steps. She did not rush. She did not apologize. She acted like a woman who had already decided fear would not rule her. She placed her bag near the second bedroom and glanced once at Julian, not asking permission, not seeking approval. That alone irritated him more than anything else. You move like you belong here, Julian said, his voice low. This is not your world. Alina met his gaze evenly. Neither is the storm, yet here we both are. For a moment, something dangerous passed between them. Not anger alone, but recognition. Julian was used to people shrinking when he spoke, lowering their eyes, adjusting their tone. Alina did none of that. She remained exactly where she was, grounded, steady, unmovable. Rules, Julian said, stepping closer. We will keep our distance. We will not interfere. You speak only when necessary. She smiled slightly, not mocking, not warm. If you wanted silence, you should have requested furniture instead of a strategist. His jaw tightened. He despised losing control. Despised being cornered. Despised that her words landed sharper than threats. Do you know why you are here? He asked. Alina folded her arms. Because someone decided this alliance needs to survive the night. Julian studied her face. She was not guessing. She knew. The storm cut power briefly. The lights flickered once, then steadied. Emergency systems hummed to life. For half a second, shadows danced across the walls. In that instant, Julian saw something flicker behind her composure. Not fear, but readiness. The kind that came from experience, not theory. "You were assigned without my approval," Julian said. "That does not happen by accident." Elena walked toward the window, snow reflecting in her eyes. "Nothing about this is an accident," she said. "This city, this storm, this room." Julian felt something shift deep in his chest. A warning instinct honed by years of blood and betrayal. He had survived by anticipating threats before they arrived. And right now the threat was not outside the building. "Why you, Elena?" he asked quietly. "Out of everyone." She turned slowly. "Because I see what others refuse to." "You are powerful, yes. But power alone does not hold alliances together. Fear cracks under pressure." He laughed once without humor. "Fear is the only reason men stay loyal." "Fear keeps them close," Elena replied. "But it also keeps knives sharp." Silence stretched. The storm pressed harder. Julian realized he was standing closer than he intended. That her scent was faint but distracting. That irritation and attraction were threading together in ways he did not allow. "You challenge me like you want to be punished," he said. Elena stepped closer, closing the distance herself. "No," she said softly. "I challenge you because no one else is brave enough to tell you when you are wrong." That word brave struck something buried. Julian turned away abruptly. He did not trust what rose in him when she spoke. "From tonight until the alliance is sealed," Julian said. "You follow my lead." Elena shook her head. "From tonight until the storm passes, we survive together. Not above. Not below." Another flicker of power. This one internal. Julian understood then why she had been assigned. Not as a shield. Not as decoration. But as a test. Somewhere beyond the walls, men were waiting. Rival families. Hidden enemies. Watching for weakness. And the most dangerous variable in the room was the woman who refused to kneel, and the man who could not decide whether to break her or protect her. The storm howled louder, and neither of them slept. The storm had settled into something heavier, slower, but more dangerous. Not wild anymore, but relentless. Julian had not slept. He stood near the window long before dawn, watching the city disappear under white silence. This was the hour when mistakes were made. When men forgot discipline. When weakness crept in. Behind him, Elena moved quietly. Not sneaking. Not hiding. Just existing in the same space without asking permission. That alone set his nerves on edge. "You do not sleep," Julian said without turning. "I rest when needed," Elena replied. "Tonight is not one of those nights." He finally looked at her. She was barefoot now, hair loose, jacket gone. Not vulnerable. Just human. That disturbed him more than fear ever could. "You are too calm for someone trapped with a man like me," he said. Elena met his gaze. You mistake calm for ignorance. I know exactly who you are. The words lingered. Julian felt the familiar instinct to shut her down to reassert dominance. Instead, he waited. Say it, he said. You are a man who learned early that control is survival, Alina said. A man who never lets anyone close enough to disappoint him. Or leave. His chest tightened. That was not information she should have. Not guesses that accurate. Careful, Julian warned. I am being careful, Alina said. Because someone like you does not explode without reason. Silence pressed between them. The storm outside softened. Inside, something sharper took its place. The phone rang. Julian answered instantly, his voice shifting into command. He listened. Once, twice. Then his jaw hardened. Where? Now. No mistakes. He ended the call and stood very still. Alina did not ask questions. She watched. Say it, Julian finally said. Your people are nervous, she replied. They sense movement. A rival convoy crossed the outer boundary, Julian said. Neutral ground or not, someone is testing me. Alina stepped closer. Then this is why I am here. He turned sharply. You were not assigned for negotiation. No, Alina said. I was assigned to keep you from making a decision driven by pride. That struck deeper than accusation. Julian moved toward her, his presence heavy, dangerous. You think I act on pride. I think you act on fear, Alina said softly. And fear makes even kings reckless. For a moment, Julian saw red. Then something else. A memory. A hospital room. Machines. Blood. A voice telling him he was too late. He turned away. Alina spoke again, quieter now. Who was hurt? Julian said nothing. Who? Alina repeated. My sister, he said at last. She was caught between alliances years ago. A warning meant for me. The words tasted like iron. Alina felt the shift immediately. This was not a story he told. This was a wound. She did not reach for him. Did not soften her voice. She simply said, I am sorry. The storm outside seemed to pause. That is why I do not trust neutrality, Julian continued. That is why I control every variable. Because one moment of mercy cost her everything. Alina nodded. And one moment of mercy is the only thing that will stop it from happening again. Julian faced her. Really faced her. You think mercy keeps men alive? No, Alina said. But restraint does. Another pause. Longer now. In that quiet, Julian realized something unsettling. She was not here to challenge his power. She was here to survive it. And make sure he did too. The storm had trapped them together. But something else had begun to surface. Not attraction. Not trust. Recognition. And that was far more dangerous. Morning arrived without sunlight. 'Only a pale gray pressing against the windows. The storm had not ended, it had learned patience. Julian moved through the suite like a shadow. Every step measured. Every breath controlled. He had given orders before dawn, rerouting security, shifting watchers, sealing exits. Neutral ground no longer felt neutral. Alina watched him from the living area. She had already reviewed incoming intel on her tablet, fingers moving with quiet precision. She noticed the change in him immediately. Not anger, not fear. Focus sharpened to a lethal edge. "They are circling," she said. "Not close enough to strike yet." Julian stopped. "How do you know?" "Because silence moved," Alina replied. "When men prepare to betray, they stop talking." He studied her. This was not theory. This was instinct. A soft chime echoed from the secure channel. Julian answered. Listened. Then ended the call without a word. "They shifted the perimeter," he said. "One of my captains is delaying orders." Alina stood. "That is not delay. That is hesitation." Julian felt the truth of it settle. Hesitation was worse than defiance. He turned to her. "What would you do?" The question surprised both of them. Alina did not smile. She walked to the window, scanning the street below. "I would let them think you are distracted. I would let the rumor spread that you are trapped here by weather and inconvenience." Julian crossed his arms. "And while they underestimate me." "You move first," she said. Quietly, decisively, without blood. He almost laughed. "Almost. You want me to show mercy." "I want you to show intelligence," Alina said. "Fear will win you the night. Respect will secure the future." Something shifted again. Not surrender. Alignment. A sudden knock echoed through the suite. Controlled. Measured. 3 taps. Julian's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon. Alina raised her hand. "Wait." The knock came again. Same rhythm. "That is not an attack," Alina said. "That is a message." Julian signaled his men. The door opened a fraction. A courier stepped in, eyes low, posture rigid. He delivered a sealed phone, then left without a word. Julian checked the message. His expression hardened. "They know you are here," Alina said. "They always know," Julian replied. "The question is who told them." Alina watched him closely. Not accusing. Observing. "Someone inside your circle is testing your limits," she said. "Not to overthrow you. To see if you are still the man they fear." Julian turned sharply. "I do not perform for loyalty." "But loyalty performs for survival," Alina said. The words struck clean. Julian exhaled slowly. He had broken men for less truth. "You are dangerous," he said. "So are you," Alina replied. "The difference is I am not pretending otherwise." The storm groaned against the building. Power flickered once more. Emergency lights held. Julian realized then that she had anticipated this entire sequence. The courier. The delay. The silence. Why were you assigned to me? He asked. Alina met his eyes fully now. Because someone believed you might listen to the one woman who would never kneel. That admission carried weight. Julian stepped closer. Not threatening. Not intimate. Nothing. If you betray me, he said, there will be nowhere you can hide. Alina did not step back. If I betray you, she said, you will already be dead. The air tightened. Then something unexpected happened. Julian nodded. From this moment, he said, you stand beside me. Not behind, Alina corrected. He held her gaze, then nodded again. Side by side. Outside, the storm continued its slow assault. Inside, a different kind of alliance had begun. Not built on fear, but on recognition. And somewhere in the city, someone realized too late that the wrong man had been tested, and the wrong woman had been underestimated. The suite felt smaller than it had the night before. Not because the walls moved, because the distance between them had. The storm pressed on the glass with slow, deliberate force. No longer violent. Certain. Like it knew it would win. Julian stood at the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back. His men had gone quiet again. Too quiet. That silence was a language he understood better than words. Alina felt it too. The pressure. The sense that something unseen was tightening its grip. They are waiting, she said, for you to react. Julian turned to her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. I do not react. That is the problem, Alina replied. You absorb until it poisons you. His jaw flexed. You think I am losing control. I think you are holding it too tightly. The words landed like a blade. Julian stepped closer. His presence heavy, dangerous. You do not tell me how to rule. Alina did not move. She lifted her chin just enough. I tell you when ruling becomes self-destruction. The air cracked. Not with anger. With the truth. Julian laughed, once sharp and humorless. You enjoy provoking me. No, Alina said. I enjoy keeping you alive. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm filled the space between their breaths. Then the message arrived. Julian read it once. Then again. His knuckles whitened. They have taken a meeting, he said. Without my approval. Alina understood instantly. A captain. A trusted one. This is not rebellion, she said. It is a test. Julian slammed his hand against the table. The sound echoed. Power unchecked. Fracturing. I built this with blood, he said. I do not owe them patience. Alina stepped forward before she could think. Close enough to feel the heat of him. Close enough that retreat was no longer possible. And that blood built fear, not loyalty, she said. You taught them survival, not belief. Julian froze. Her words had crossed a line. But she did not pull back. Do it then, she continued. Crush them. Make an example. Prove you are still the monster they worship. His eyes locked on hers. Something wild passed through them. And what do you think happens next? He asked. Elena swallowed. You stand alone. The truth hung between them. Julian turned away, breathing hard. He felt exposed. Cornered. Not by enemies. By a woman who refused to let him hide. You think I do not know this, he said quietly. You think I do not hear the knives sharpening. Then stop pretending control means isolation, Elena said. Let them see restraint. Let them see you choose something other than fear. Julian turned back. Slowly. Dangerously calm. You speak like someone who has lost everything. Elena hesitated. Just long enough. I have, she said. That admission changed the air. Julian stepped closer again. This time not in threat. In something worse. Understanding. For the first time he saw it. The cost behind her steadiness. The discipline forged by pain. Why are you really here? He asked. Elena met his gaze. Because if you fall, this city burns. And because someone needs to stop you from becoming the man who destroys what he protects. The storm roared louder. As if in response. Julian felt the pressure break. Not outward. Inward. He reached for the secure phone. Issued a single quiet order. Cancel the meeting. Stand down. No blood. Elena released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Julian looked at her. Long. Hard. You should be afraid of me, he said. Elena stepped even closer. Their bodies nearly touching. I am, she said. But not enough to walk away. For one suspended moment. The world held its breath. Neither of them knew it yet. But this was the night everything cracked open. And nothing would ever return to the way it was. The air between them had changed. Not softened. Charged. The storm outside surged again as if answering the tension inside the suite. Wind struck the windows in long, violent waves. The city below vanished into white silence. Julian stood too close now. Close enough that Elena could feel the heat of him. The restrained violence in the way he held himself. The effort it took for him not to command the moment. You crossed a line, Julian said quietly. Elena did not step back. I stood my ground. That is not the same thing. It is when the man in front of you is used to everyone moving out of his way. His jaw tightened. Her voice did not shake. Her eyes did not drop. You do not understand what you are playing with, he said. Elena lifted her chin. I understand exactly. That is why I am still here. The storm howled louder. The lights dimmed, then steadied. Emergency power hummed through the walls. Julian turned away abruptly. He needed distance. Needed control. needed her not to look at him the way she was looking at him. "Do not confuse tonight with permission," he said. "What you saw was necessity, not weakness." Alina watched his back. The broad shoulders. The tension pulled tight like wire. "You think I want your weakness," she said. "I want your restraint." That word landed harder than any insult. Julian turned sharply. His eyes dark and dangerous. "Restraint is what gets men killed." "No," Alina replied. "It is what keeps monsters from becoming tyrants." They stood inches apart, breath mingling, neither willing to retreat. The storm cracked against the building with sudden violence. Thunder rolled low and deep. The windows rattled. In that instant, something inside Julian snapped. Not anger, not violence, control. He reached for her wrist. Not rough, not gentle, certain. "Enough," he said. Alina should have pulled away. Every instinct screamed that this was the moment to retreat. Instead, she stepped closer. "If you are going to stop me," she said, "then stop pretending this is only strategy." The silence that followed was deafening. Julian stared at her. At the defiance. At the calm fire in her eyes. At the woman who had seen his worst instincts and stayed anyway. And then the distance between them disappeared. The kiss was not planned. Not careful. Not controlled. It was sudden. Sharp. A collision. For a heartbeat, Alina froze. Shock racing through her. Then instinct took over. Her hand rose to his chest. Not to push him away. The kiss lasted only a moment. But it felt like a fracture. Like something sealed had broken open. Julian pulled back first. His breathing uneven. His eyes blazing. "This was a mistake," he said. Alina felt the echo of him still on her lips. Her pulse thundered. Then why did it feel like truth? Julian stepped away immediately. Distance restored by force of will. "This does not happen again," he said. "We are not crossing this line." Alina steadied herself. "You do not get to decide that alone. I am deciding it now." "Because you are afraid," Alina said quietly. "Not of me. Of what you lose if you let this continue." Julian said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside the suite, something irreversible had begun. The kiss had changed nothing. And everything. And both of them knew. There was no returning to control. Only choosing what came next. The distance between them did not cool the air. It sharpened it. Julian moved through the suite with purpose. Orders were issued in low, controlled tones through the secure channel. Men responded immediately. Too immediately. Alina felt it before he said anything. The shift. The change in rhythm. This was no longer waiting. This was movement. "They are making their move now," she said. Julian did not look at her. I expected it. You expected to be tested, Elena said. Not for me to be the pressure point. That got his attention. He turned slowly. Danger returned to his eyes. Not rage. A calculation. They see you as leverage, he said. A distraction. A weakness. Elena stepped closer. Then they misunderstand both of us. The secure phone vibrated again. Julian read the message once, then closed his eyes briefly. They want you delivered, he said. Not harmed. Displayed. Elena did not flinch. That means they think you will choose power over restraint. Julian exhaled slowly. They think correctly. She held his gaze. Until now. Silence spread between them. Heavy. Decisive. Julian spoke carefully. They will not touch you. How? Elena asked. By making an example of them. She shook her head. That is what they want. Blood proves their theory. His jaw tightened. You are asking me to do nothing. I am asking you to do the hardest thing, Elena replied. Trust. Julian laughed once without warmth. Trust gets people buried. So does fear, she said. The storm outside surged again. Wind screaming against the glass. The building groaned but held. Julian walked toward her. Stopped close. Not touching, but close enough that the tension hummed. They are coming for you tonight, he said. If I let them think they can take you, they will expose themselves. Elena studied his face. And if I refuse to be bait, then I force you out of the building. For your safety. She stepped even closer. You will not exile me to protect your pride. This is not pride, Julian said. This is survival. For you, Elena corrected. Not for me. Another message came through. Julian ignored it. Elena placed her hand flat against his chest. Not plating. Grounding. If you cage me now, she said, you prove them right. His breathing changed. Slower. Heavier. What are you offering? He asked. To stay visible, Elena said. To walk openly beside you. Not hidden. Not protected. Chosen. That is dangerous. So are you. The words landed clean. Julian closed his eyes for a moment. The storm pressed harder. Time narrowing. If I lose you, he said quietly. You will not, Elena replied. Because you will not own me. And they will not control me. Another pause. Longer. Julian opened his eyes. Decision settled. They will not touch her, he said into the channel. Stand down. Hold position. No blood. The response was immediate. Confused. Obedient. Elena felt the shift ripple outward. Power redirected. Not withdrawn. Julian looked at her. Something raw moved behind his eyes. You should hate me, he said. For pulling you into this world. Alina shook her head. I chose to stand here. Outside, the storm continued its assault. Inside the suite, a line had been crossed again. Not with a kiss. With a choice. The enemy believed the Mafia boss would protect his power at any cost. They were wrong. He had chosen restraint. And that choice would cost blood later. Just not tonight. And for the first time, Julian realized losing control over her was the only thing keeping him alive. The storm finally began to loosen its grip. Not retreating, just breathing differently. Morning light crept through the windows, thin and colorless. The city below was buried, quiet, suspended, as if holding its breath after a near collapse. Julian had not slept. Neither had Alina. They occupied the same space without speaking. Two people changed by a night that refused to release them. Julian stood near the table reviewing incoming messages. Every update confirmed the same truth. The threat had not vanished. It had only paused. Alina watched him carefully. Not with suspicion. With calculation. There is something you are not asking me, she said. Julian did not look up. I already know the answer. Then you should say it anyway. He turned slowly. Measured. Controlled. You were not assigned randomly. Alina exhaled. The sound carried weight. No, she said. I was not. Silence filled the room again. Vic, expectant. Julian waited. This was not interrogation. This was restraint. I was trained for this world, Alina continued. Not raised in it. Trained to survive it without becoming part of it. Julian felt the words settle deep. Training meant intention. Preparation. Choice. By who, he asked. By people who believed monsters could be managed, she replied. Not destroyed. Redirected. Julian folded his arms. And you believe that? I believe some men are shaped by violence. And some are consumed by it. The difference is choice. That landed harder than accusation. Julian stepped closer. You knew what I was before you met me. Yes. You knew what I had done. Yes. And you came anyway. Alina met his gaze. Because someone like you does not need another enemy. You need a mirror. The truth pressed in from all sides. Julian realized then that every challenge she had offered, every refusal to kneel, every moment of defiance, had been deliberate. You have been testing me, he said. Alina nodded. Without apology. I needed to know if restraint was real, or just another story powerful men tell themselves. Julian felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not anger. Recognition. And what have you decided, he asked. That you are dangerous, Alina said. But not beyond choosing differently. Outside, the wind softened further. Snow slid from ledges in slow, heavy sheets. Julian turned away. The city stretched beneath him, broken and quiet. If they discover who you really are, he said, they will never stop hunting you. They already know, Alina replied. What they do not know is that I chose to stand beside you. That choice echoed. Julian faced her again. And if I fail, then I walk away, she said. Not destroyed, not owned, gone. He studied her. This was not devotion. This was agency. You are not mine, Julian said. No, Elena agreed. But I am here. The difference mattered. Another message arrived. Julian glanced at it, then shut the device off. It is not over, he said. No, Alina replied. But it has changed. They stood together in the quiet aftermath. Not touching. Not retreating. The storm had revealed what the night was hiding. She was not an accident. Not a tool. Not bait. She was the one variable no one had accounted for. And Julian understood now. The most dangerous reveal was not who she was. It was what she demanded of him. Choice over instinct. Restraint over domination. And that demand would reshape everything that came next. The silence after her confession did not feel empty. It felt loaded, like a gun resting on a table between them. Julian did not move. He felt the past shifting under his feet. Memories he had buried long ago beginning to surface. He walked to the window slowly. The city below was still frozen white and quiet. But his mind was not. Say it, he said without turning. Say the part you are avoiding. Elena hesitated. Just once. There is a reason my name was placed in your path, she said. A reason it was me and not another strategist. Julian felt the warning before the words. A deep instinct that something sacred and ruined was about to collide. Years ago, Elena continued. Before you consolidated power. Before your name carried weight. There was a family caught between factions. Julian closed his eyes. He knew where this was going. A family that refused to choose sides. That believed neutrality could protect them. His chest tightened. They were erased, Julian said quietly. Yes. The word fell like ash. Elena stepped closer. Her voice steady but softer now. You did not order it. You were not even present. But the move that secured your rise. The alliance that made you untouchable. Destroyed them. Julian turned slowly. His face unreadable. But something in his eyes had fractured. Who, Elena? My father, she said. And my brother. The room seemed to tilt. Julian had killed men. Broken empires. Ordered silence where screams once lived. But this was different. Your sister, he said slowly, was hurt in retaliation years later. Elena nodded. Same chain of violence. Different names. Julian felt the weight of it settle. The truth that power never stopped at borders. That blood always looped back. "You came to me knowing this," he said. "Yes." "Knowing you might hate me." "Yes." "Knowing I might destroy you." "Yes." Her honesty cut deeper than anger. "Then why are you still standing here?" he asked. "Because I needed to know if you would choose the same path again." The storm outside cracked once more. A low, distant sound, as if the city itself reacted. Julian stepped back. The distance felt necessary. "I did not know," he said. "I swear to you." "I know," Alina replied. "That is why this matters." The silence stretched, thick and unforgiving. "If I had known," Julian said. "If I had seen the cost." "You still would have taken power," Alina said. "Because survival demanded it. The difference is what you do now." Julian felt something tear loose inside him. Not guilt alone. Responsibility. "I cannot undo it," he said. "No," she agreed. "But you can stop repeating it." Julian looked at her. Really looked. "You should hate my." "I hated what you represented," Alina said. "But hatred keeps the cycle alive." She took another step closer. Close enough that he could feel her presence again. "What you choose next determines whether this ends with us." The words hung heavy. Julian exhaled slowly. The storm outside finally began to break. Snow falling softer. Wind rising. "If I walk away from power," he said, "the families will tear each other apart." "Then do not walk away," Alina replied. "Change how you hold it." For the first time since he took control, Julian understood the truth. Power had shaped him, but it did not own him. He nodded once. A decision settling deeper than any order he had ever given. "Then I choose differently." Alina closed her eyes briefly. Relief and grief mixing together. The past could not be erased, but the future had shifted. And in that moment, both of them understood. Their meeting had never been coincidence. It had been consequence. And what came next would either end the cycle or destroy them both. The storm ended without ceremony. No final roar. No warning. Just silence. Morning light filled the suite fully now. The city below revealed itself scarred but standing. Roads buried. Buildings iced. Life paused and waiting to move again. Julian stood at the window for a long time. Not watching the city. Watching the man he had been. Alina waited. She did not rush him. This was not a moment to claim. It was a moment to choose. "I can end this," Julian said quietly. "I can disappear. Walk away from power. From blood. From everything." Alina shook her head. "If you run, the storm follows." He turned to face her. His eyes were tired, stripped of armor. Real. Then tell me what you want from me. Alina stepped forward, her voice steady. I want you to stay. Not as the man who ruled through fear, but as the man who learned restraint. I want you to protect without caging, to lead without destroying, to choose every day not to repeat the past. Julian exhaled, a long breath that sounded like surrender. You are asking me to change the foundation of everything. Yes, Alina said. Because the foundation is already cracked. Silence settled again. But this time it was calm. Julian reached into his coat and removed a ring. Not ornate. Not symbolic of dominance. Simple and worn. This belonged to my mother, he said. Before the world turned violent. Before survival replaced love. Alina did not move. I was going to give it to someone one day, Julian continued. But I thought that day would never come. He held it out. Not kneeling. Not commanding. Offering. Alina felt her breath catch. This was not a proposal shaped by power. This was a promise shaped by choice. I will not belong to you, she said softly. Julian nodded. I do not want ownership. I will stand beside you. Not behind. Partners, he said. In everything. She took the ring, not placing it on her hand yet. Just holding it. Outside, the city began to stir. Sirens in the distance. Engines starting. Life returning. Julian felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Peace did not erase danger, but it gave it direction. The alliance will hold, he said, because fear no longer drives it. And the enemies, Alina added, will hesitate, because they no longer understand you. He smiled faintly. A rare thing. You annoy me, he said. She smiled back. You terrify me. That is why this works. Later that morning, the lockdown lifted. Cars moved. Men repositioned. Orders changed. But something deeper had shifted. Not in the city. In him. Julian stepped out of the building with Alina at his side. Not guarded. Not hidden. The storm had passed. But its purpose remained. Sometimes destruction does not arrive to ruin. It arrives to force a choice. And as they walked into the open air together, Julian understood. Power without restraint was a curse. Love without fear was a risk. And he chose both. Not because it was safe, but because it was right.